What up, RotoBallers? Welcome to the Roto Revolution live style, because that's how we're doing it over here these days. Going live for some of these episodes because number one, it's awesome to converse with you and answer some questions and give you some good information. But number two, it makes life a little bit easier because we don't have so much editing to do. And by we, I mean Jake, because Jake is the editor extraordinaire. But we've been doing live waiver wire shows the last 2 weeks, and tonight we decided we were going to go live to talk about running backs. So this is the running back start sit video for week 10. We've got our guys that we need to have in our lineup and our guys that we need to have on the bench. And I'm Kyle Richardson, senior fantasy analyst from RotoBaller.com. And over there next to me, to the left or to the right, I can't remember which side I'm on when you're viewing the screen, but Jake's somewhere on either side of me. Jake Hubman, what's going on, man?
Hey, you know what? I'm planning to do something a little bit different in this episode. We're talking running backs, and I'm going super bold. So I wanted to throw that out there, let the people know, no, I'm not crazy. No, I haven't been drinking. And yes, I still love fantasy football, but I'm sick of just talking about the old names. So I'm going to go a little bit off the rails tonight.
So I have to say, I'm watching this live right now, and I am abnormally close to the screen.
Well, people like to see you, Kyle. You're feeling better. Everybody wants to see how close you are. I mean,
I'm moving all the way back here.
No, I don't think you're any closer than usual, really. Are you?
Yeah, if you look at it, I am super close to the screen right now. I'm right up in everybody's grill.
Well, I mean, where else would you rather be?
That's okay. It happens.
I mean, there's worse places. You could be like, cut off to where all we see is your forehead.
Evan, is Dalvin Cook back to running back one status? I hope so, because I spent way too much on him this past season.
He's not this week.
Maybe not this week, but it's good to see him. It's good to see him break one off. Now he gets to rest up a little bit again, and hopefully he'll be back healthy, ready to roll, and we can start putting him back into our lineup with no issues. But we're going to start jumping into the takes here. We've got starts, we've got sits, and as always, we're going to run into these starts first. And my first start this week is maybe one that isn't that big of a surprise, but I have him listed as a start because I think he's in for a huge week this week. Fingers crossed. David Johnson, I think, is going to put together his best performance of the season in week 10. Chiefs, they're giving up the most fantasy points to opposing running backs right now. So the opportunity is there. Johnson doesn't have 100 yards in a game yet. And only has one game where he has more than 4 yards per carry. So I expect both of those things to change this week. I am calling 100 yards for David Johnson. The only thing we have to be concerned about is the Chiefs just go absolutely crazy, which they have done several times this year, blow out the Cardinals, and also they take away the running game. But I think the new offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, really understands that they need to use David Johnson as much as possible. So I'm seeing a huge week coming up for him.
Yeah, 100% agree. I had him as one of my starts of the week over on my channel. He's definitely somebody who I'm expecting a lot from going forward. The change in offensive coordinator is going to help, yes. But like you just said, the Chiefs can put up points, and they can put them up very, very quickly. The defense in Arizona is not exactly elite, so it could get to the point to where they take away the running game, but that's kind of where I want it to be in a sense, because I think David Johnson can be more effective in the passing game than the running game. Let's be realistic. As soon as he gets the handoff in the backfield, there's somebody in his face already. I would almost have them put him in motion, line him up in the slot, do something, get some screen passes going. That may be where David Johnson could really get some added value. Instead of just taking dives up the middle or tosses to the outside, let's try to get this guy the ball in space. And I think with the new offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, that's something that they're going to try to do. They made an effort to get Larry Fitzgerald involved the week before the bye. David Johnson had a decent week, but it wasn't what we expect from David Johnson. But they had the bye week to try to get things straightened out, get things moving in the right direction. David Johnson is somebody who I'm definitely buying here second half of the season because a lot of the owners are just frustrated with him. But he's still a solid running back. He's just not putting up those numbers that we're used to in the past.
Yeah, I have him in a dynasty league right now, and we can only not a dynasty league, a keeper league, and we can only keep one running back. And I've had a lot of people ask me about him, and I'm saying no, I'm sticking put right now, and I think that's the best choice is to stick with him. But if you can get him, if you don't own him and you can get him, I think that's a wise decision as well. Jake, who's your first start this week?
All right, going bold. I'm going to go with somebody who we've had on the sit side of the show more than we've probably ever had at the start side of the show. And no, this is not just recency bias. I'm going to go with Dion Lewis of the Tennessee Titans. He's coming off a great game, a game where he once again, out-touched Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is not the lead back in Tennessee anymore. It's going to be Dion Lewis, and it's been Dion Lewis for a while. This past week against Dallas, we just saw it on Monday night, 19 carries for 62 yards. Not overly productive there. I do like that he had 19 carries, but also added in 4 receptions, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And this is now his second straight game with over 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues. And now he gets to face the New England Patriots. Yes, there's a little bit of added motivation there. It's his old team. They are going to be playing in Tennessee at home. He's their feature back, if you want to call it that. Marcus Mariota is going to live and die by this little check down pass, and Dion Lewis is going to be the beneficiary of it. I love his potential going forward, and especially in PPR leagues, Dion Lewis is somebody who has some great value here in Week 10.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions a couple of weeks ago. Should I drop Dion Lewis? Should I move on from him? No, don't do it yet. Just waste. If you're in a PPR league, don't do it. And if you listened, you've been rewarded with pretty decent performances the last couple of weeks. He's not being ultra efficient with his carries. He's averaging under 4 yards per carry right now. Rushing TDs, not there. Actually, overall TDs, Dion Lewis only has 2 touchdowns for the season. He is averaging 7.8 yards per reception, so we hope maybe those numbers start to tick up a little bit. But, they looked good on Monday night. The offense seemed to be operating well. So are they starting to turn the corner a little bit? If they do, that means Dion Lewis continues to hold some more value going forward. So I like what I saw, but again, then it was the dysfunctional Dallas Cowboys. But the Dallas defense isn't bad either.
No, it's not a horrible defense there in Dallas. And like you said, the offense, I'm not going to say it looked good in Tennessee, but it looked better than it did before the bye week. And you saw with the touches that Dion Lewis got out of the bye week that they're committed to him and they want to get him the ball as often as possible. Still looks like the goal line carries are going Derrick Henry's way. But if you're getting this much volume, 20-plus touches a week from Dion Lewis, he's a definite start for me.
Yeah, and my next start now, I'm going to be jumping to a guy that a lot of us have probably cooled on recently, but I'm going to go back to Austin Ekler for Week 10. A really good matchup coming up here with the Oakland Raiders. This is a PPR league only start. Okay, so if you're in standard leagues, toss this out. If you're in half PPR, good. If you're in PPR, even better. But the Raiders are giving up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing running backs right now. And this is a game script that can potentially get out of hand pretty quick. And if it does, because Melvin Gordon has had some hamstring issues, now he is a must start. Melvin Gordon you put in your lineup. There's no doubt about that. But he's had some hamstring issues. So maybe if this game gets out of control, they say, you know what, we're just going to be careful with him. We're going to move him to the bench. Maybe they do take him on and off the field a little bit more than normal. And Austin Ekler, hopefully he can put together a good game. Now, we were super excited a couple of weeks ago when Melvin Gordon was out, and we thought that Austin Ekler was going to have the backfield to himself and do wonders with it. That didn't end up working out the way we had hoped. But I think he functions a lot better with Melvin Gordon there with him running the plays. I think they function better together than separately, except for Melvin Gordon. He's just good all the time right now. But Austin Ekler is a guy in a PPR league. If you need a flex play this week, I think he could return that value for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody who definitely to start off the season was, a huge asset. One thing that kind of worries me a little bit is last week he only had 1 reception for 13 yards against the Seahawks. I understand they didn't really involve him much in the game plan, and that was by far his worst game, receiving for the year. And I do expect him to take a leap forward. And also, we got to remember that Melvin Gordon's coming off a hamstring injury. Just because he looked good this past week doesn't mean he's going to trot out there and get you 20 to 25 carries in a week, especially in a game like this against the pitiful Oakland Raiders. If there's a second half lead, I can see Austin Ekler getting a few of those extra touches and something that really benefits you maybe in the second half of the game. First half of the game, you may be starting to sweat it a little bit because he's not touching the ball a whole lot. But I can see them starting to give Melvin a little bit of rest late in games if they're ahead a lot. And Austin Ekler has proven to be somebody he's over almost 6 yards a carry. I mean, he's been efficient. He's just not getting the touches.
Yeah, absolutely. And before Jake moves into his next must start, if you're watching the video right now, hit that like button. We would appreciate that. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. Jake, who do you got next?
I'm going to go bold again. I told you guys at the beginning, and this is somebody who's been a little bit irritating for some owners as of late, and it's Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers.
Ooh, this is perfect timing because Nick Smith just asked, should he consider starting Aaron Jones over Sony Michel if he plays? So both names are going to be coming up. Jake's going to cover Aaron Jones right now. So this is perfect timing, Nick Smith.
It's like you read our mind here, Nick Smith. I'm going to definitely start Aaron Jones this week, and I get it. Last week he had 14 carries, 76 yards, had a costly fumble there in the second half. You really don't want to see that type of stuff. But if the Green Bay Packers, kind of like they do every single year, they always make a run late in the season. It's kind of like what they do. If that's going to happen again this year, Aaron Rodgers is going to need some help from the running game. They're going to have to be productive out of that running game in order to open things up down the field for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones is by far the lead back here. I mean, he's head and shoulders better than Jamal Williams now that Ty Montgomery is gone. Aaron Jones has that touchdown upside. He did have a touchdown 2 weeks ago against the Rams. It's a decent matchup. Now he gets the Miami Dolphins, who on average are giving up almost 30 points a game to opposing running backs. They've given up touchdowns every week this year with the exception of 3 weeks. I mean, this is definitely a team you can run on. They've had big numbers put up against them in the past. It's a great matchup for Aaron Jones. And I fully expect the Packers to start giving him more and more than anything. It's not Aaron Jones. It's Mike McCarthy that's the problem. But if he can get us close to 15 to 20 touches a game, to me, Aaron Jones is something we definitely have to start this week.
Yeah, I love me some Aaron Jones. When he came back, we both agreed that we thought that this was going to be his backfield to take. And unfortunately, he's been one of those frustrating cases at running backs this year. Mike McCarthy just doesn't seem to give him the volume that he deserves. Even last week, Jamal Williams got these little touches here and there that just, as a fantasy owner of Aaron Jones, irk you and make you really upset. Same goes for Kerryon Johnson. So Aaron Jones, he's got the talent. Absolutely 100%. We just need to see the volume from him, and that could come in any week now. I don't know. I know a lot of people don't think Mike McCarthy is a very good coach, and I'm not going to comment on that. But I would hope that sooner or later he sees that Aaron Jones is the best player to be in the backfield the majority of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely deserves to get close to 20 touches a week.
All right, so heading over to my next must start. This is a guy that I haven't had listed in a while, but I did list him a couple of times prior to these last few matchups, and that's Tevin Coleman. I think it's time to get back on the Tevin Coleman train. I think he's starting to speed up a little bit. That's really good to see. I think moving forward, we're going to start getting that value that we had hoped that we were going to get when Devonta Freeman went down. But right now, the Browns are giving up the third most overall fantasy points to running backs this year. They're giving up the most rushing touchdowns to running backs this year. And they are giving up, and this is the most important stat this week, they're giving up the fifth most receiving yards to running backs this year. And that is why Tevin Coleman is going to be a guy that I need to have in my lineup this week, even though he's probably let us down at least a couple of times in the past. And Jake, I know you think there's an Ito bit of problem over there in Atlanta. I don't know. I think both of them have more than enough room to contribute this year or this week, excuse me. But I definitely think Tevin Coleman is the guy with the highest ceiling.
Yeah, and I'm trying to not be biased here because he really, really, really pissed me off last week. So I'm trying really hard.
Ito or Tevin?
Tevin Coleman did, because last week he was not supposed to have a good game. He went up against a tough Redskins defense, one of the top run defenses in football. He hadn't rushed for more than 70 yards since week 2 or 3. He'd really struggled trying to get going. It wasn't a great matchup for him. And what does he do? I put him on my bench in a league, and he goes out there and scores like 30 fantasy points. So I'm a little irritated with that. However, going forward, it did kind of give you that feeling that they're going to start trying to get him going. They're going to get him involved more in the passing game than he was in the first half of the season. If anything, maybe during the bye week, they realized that they really weren't putting him in a position to be successful and limit Ito somewhat, give Tevin more opportunities, because we all thought, like you said, in the preseason, this guy's going to be an RB1 if anything happens to Devonta Freeman. Well, he hasn't been, but if he can keep up what he did last week, he's definitely a solid play here rest of season, and he does have the upside. He has that potential. I mean, his ceiling is astronomical on a weekly basis. Decent matchup, good matchup for him to go out there and have another good game, and I'll try to like him again after this week.
How well did Tevin Coleman play last week? Well, he was my running back 5 in my dynamic running back rating last week. That is how well that he played. Tevin Coleman coming in with a score of 81. Killed it in the overall just volume play with rushing yards and receiving yards. His receptions were way up there. Obviously got into the end zone and through the air as well. His receiving yards after catch were through the roof as well. So that was another great area to see. His yards after contact, So he just all around last week. The only thing he didn't really do well in last week with the dynamic running back rating was his tackles avoided per attempt. That was not great. Went down pretty easy last week. If he can get that up, though, that ceiling continues to rise up. But that score alone tells me that if he can get this opportunity against the Browns, we're looking at a potential of a top 5 week for Tevin Coleman.
Yep, 100% agree. He's got that potential. All right, I'm going to stay in the same game. Since you started off there and talking about, Tevin Coleman, let's go on the other side of the football, and I want to start Duke Johnson again this week. He's somebody that I've probably been talking up for, it's been 3 weeks now. I've been saying for people to pick up Duke Johnson, and then they were getting frustrated because, the 2 weeks prior to this week's game, he'd kind of gone out and really not been involved again. What happens the first week that Hugh Jackson is not there calling the plays? Duke Johnson had his best game of the season, by far. Only 1 carry, but that's not where he's going to make his money for you. He had 9 receptions, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Duke Johnson is somebody who, for a while there, as a running back last season, was probably one of the highest producing wide receivers playing a running back position. He played more snaps out of the slot than he did in the backfield. This is definitely a guy that can get involved heavily in a passing offense, and they're going to need him in Cleveland. They need more playmakers. Antonio Callaway has looked better the last couple of weeks, but Duke Johnson is somebody who's going to be relied upon heavily. They're going up against the Atlanta Falcons, currently giving up on average over 30 points per game to opposing running backs. They've given up touchdowns the last 2 weeks. This is an offense you can run against, and Duke Johnson is going to start being involved in different kinds of ways. They're going to have to throw the ball. The Atlanta offense seems to be firing on all cylinders again, especially with Tevin Coleman getting going, and they're going to have to continue to score points on the Cleveland side of the football. Duke Johnson is somebody who I feel for the next few weeks to come, could be a solid flex play for you every single week.
I drafted him in far too many leagues this year to not get a little something out of him. So I hope you are right. I hope they continue to use him. But a lot of times what you see happen when new coaches come in, new coaches take over. We're seeing, Greg Williams obviously stepping up as the interim head coach. We're seeing a new offensive coordinator. When these things happen, you typically look at your best players, your best weapons, your playmakers, and say, I'm going to lean on you. And that's what Duke Johnson is. He's probably one of the best playmakers on that team. I'm glad you brought up Antonio Callaway, because when we record the wide receiver show, we might be talking about him again this week, foreshadowing. But yeah, Duke Johnson, I mean, all the talent is there. They just need to start giving him some touches.
Yeah, and I don't expect him to get a whole lot of carries out of the backfield. I think Nick Chubb's going to be somebody who dominates that. But if they can get him to go in the receiving game, 9 receptions in a game from your running back is something that I would love to be able to count on almost every single week.
Yeah, if you can give me 5 carries, and anywhere between 7 to 10 targets in the passing game, in a PPR league, Duke Johnson can turn that into some fantasy gold.
Yeah, I'll give you 5 carries, Kyle. That's probably all I'm good for these days because I'm getting old, but I'll give you however many carries you need.
Okay, I will keep that. I'll keep that in mind. You did carry the show a couple of weeks ago, and I was sick. So
there you go.
Did
what I had to do.
All right. Just before we move on to the sits, again, if you're watching right now, hit the like button. If you're watching the recorded version, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. If you are watching live right now, get ready to start dropping some questions. We will take a few questions at the end, but right now we're covering all of our start and sit, so we'll get to that first, and then we will be taking some more questions here pretty soon. So keep ready for that. Going into the sits now, a guy that I loved all year long, Kerryon Johnson. I'm gonna list him as a sit this week because he has got himself one horrible matchup against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are giving up a league low 11.79 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers right now, and the Lions are still want to strangle the Lions, are still refusing to give him a full workload. He only had 15 total touches last week, and unless you're being ultra efficient with 15 touches, you're not worth a start in fantasy football. Theo Riddick is back as well. That's also going to start limiting Kerryon Johnson a little bit. Against the Bears, again, if you're not being ultra efficient with 15 touches, you don't need to be in my lineup. Kerryon Johnson is a guy I strongly suggest that you keep on your bench this week.
And I hate to admit it. I agree, but more problems than that is the offensive line. How many times did Matt Stafford get sacked last week? Was it like 10 times? 10 sacks? They can't stop anybody at the line of scrimmage. You lose the goal line upside because apparently Rumor has it LeGarrette Blount has some incriminating photos of Matt Patricia or something because he gets all the goal line carries. I mean, there's something going on there where Kerryon just doesn't get that opportunity. So if he's got no offensive line to run behind, he's getting limited touches, and he loses the goal line upside. It really makes him a hard start, especially with that tough matchup against the Bears. He's not going to be anywhere near one of my lineups either this week, which I hate to say it, though, because like we said, I think he could be one of the top running backs in all football if he could get the volume.
October Scorpio's throwing out a what up, Jake and Kyle, so a what up to you, October Scorpio.
What's going on? And I saw Savage Potato Man out there earlier. I haven't said that name in a while. It was good to see him also.
Absolutely. So I just want to brace everybody at this point because we're getting ready to start Jake's sit picks for the week. And he even said it himself. He's being a little bit on the bold side. So, and I like bold, so I'm not going to rag on him for it. I don't know if I 100% agree, but let's start talking about some of these sits. Let's give me back-to-back sits. I want you to go twice in a row, and I want your two most controversial sits for this week.
Okay, well, the first one's going to be Marlon Mack of the Indianapolis Colts. And I know that's hard to believe because the 2 weeks before the bye week, he had absolute huge weeks going into the bye week. He had 126 yards week 7, 132 yards week 8, 3 touchdowns in those 2 games. Looked great ever since he came back. And now they had the bye week, which is great. It gives him a chance to somewhat heal up. He was still limited in practice today. They're going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are also coming off their bye week. And it's just not just me, but the Jacksonville Jaguars defense just doesn't look like we all expected it to look. They've been pretty porous. I mean, they've been allowing rushing yards, receiving yards. They haven't really been able to stop a whole lot. They're still the 7th-ranked run defense against opposing running backs. And I have to think, coming out of the bye week, where they had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, 2 weeks of watching that film of Marlon Mack, they've had an opportunity to somewhat game plan. Now, yes, I understand they lost Dante Fowler. He's no longer there off the defensive line, but there's still plenty of options there in that defense to limit opposing running backs. I'm just worried that Marlon Mack is going to go out there and have a letdown this week, and people are going to be so used to him going out there and putting up those big numbers that if he goes out there and gets you 16 carries for 80 yards, you're going to be disappointed. That's kind of where I see him. Nyheim Hines is still somebody that may be involved if Jacksonville can actually put up some points. It's just one of these things where I'm worried about it, and I don't want people to go out there and expect huge things and then have a letdown. So Marlon Mack is my first one.
So with Marlon Mack, now the Jaguars have been pretty good at stopping the run. They're inside the top 10 in terms of fantasy points against for running backs, for giving up about 16 points to opposing running backs per game. So if you put Marlon Mack in a PPR league as your running back too, excuse me, and he gives you 16 points, are you okay with that?
Yes, 16 points I'd be okay with.
But you don't think he gets there?
I don't think he gets there. I see him in single digits this week.
With as good as he's been the 2 weeks leading up to the bye, I was starting to think that Marlon Mack has hit must-start status. The offensive line is so good in Indianapolis this year, something that a lot of us did not see coming. Much improved. The passing game is looking really good right now. Marlon Mack healthy really helped balances that out. In terms of the dynamic running back rating, the 2 weeks prior to the bye, Marlon Mack was a top 10 running back, top 8 running back in my dynamic running back rating, and he was even number 2 overall a couple weeks ago. So everything is there. Everything is there for the success to happen. It is a tough matchup, but unless you have a better option, I feel like I'm going to chance it just because Jacksonville hasn't been nearly as good as we had thought coming into this year.
And part of that kind of leads into what I'm saying, having a better option. People weren't really counting on Marlon Mack. Heck, he was probably picked up off the waiver wire in a ton of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks ago? There's probably a lot of teams out there that have decent options. And more than anything, if you have one of those options on your bench, to me, it's worth considering. I can come out here every week and say, oh, yeah, obviously this guy's a must-start, this guy's a must-start, this guy's a must-sit. And people get sick of hearing the same names. I'm trying to add a little bit of perspective just for the people to understand that there's a chance that he goes out there and disappoints this week. Not that he's a horrible running back rest of season. I just don't like the potential here in week 10. And the hateful comments are already coming in, but I'm okay with that.
I don't see any. I don't see any hateful comments.
I saw a couple here. But
I didn't see those. So don't put hateful comments in there, people. Jake's just being a little bit bold. That's okay. It's good to do that from time to time.
I don't want to be boring and just sound like everybody else. Just wait till I give him the next name, Kyle.
So is Ronald Jones? No, I'm kidding.
He's a perma cut. He doesn't even deserve to be in the NFL. All right.
Cut.
Next one, since I'm doing back to back, it's gonna be Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals.
This is the one that I'm interested to see the reaction to.
And I understand that it's bold and that a lot of people are going, "You are absolutely nuts. How am I not going to start Joe Mixon coming off of the bye week?" I love Joe Mixon, first of all. As far as football related, production, fantasy football related, I love Joe Mixon as a whole. This week, though, I'm not really feeling it. They're going up against the Saints, one of the top run defenses in football. They have yet to allow over 100 yards to an opposing running back. They've only allowed 5 rushing touchdowns on the season so far. I think the injury to A.J. Green hurts the offense. The defense is going to be able to key in more on the run because they know they're limited in the passing game and their passing weapons. I think Joe Mixon is still productive, but I don't know if he's surefire RB1, low-end RB1, high-end RB2 this week. There's too many variables in there. There's a chance that Gio Bernard comes back. I don't really care about Gio Bernard, but Marvin Lewis cares about Gio Bernard. And even if he's in there stealing 5 to 8 touches, those could be the touches that Joe Mixon breaks for a big touchdown run. It could be anything. And anytime a limited upside with a starting running back like this, it worries me a little bit. If it were any other coach other than Marvin Lewis, maybe except for Hugh Jackson, I wouldn't be as worried with Gio Bernard possibly playing. But if it happens, I'm just tempering expectations there on Joe Mixon.
And I get it. And when I was doing my research for this episode, Joe Mixon's name popped up on my radar because I had to look at the matchup. I had to look at AJ Green being out. And I agree with you when you say, I think what we need to do this week with Joe Mixon is we bring that ceiling all the way down. So that ceiling that we've gotten used to with the amount of volume he's had. I'm not super worried about Gio Bernard. So if you are an owner that has Gio Bernard, I wouldn't start him. I don't think he's fantasy relevant. I think he can get a few touches this week and maybe limit Joe Mixon just a little bit. But it is a tough matchup. I don't think a lot of people know just how good the Saints' run defense has been this year just because they've gotten torched in the passing game so much. So, yes, the Saints have been really good against the run this year. If the Bengals have issues moving the football, then the Saints, who are firing on all cylinders right now, if they get out in front, then you see a lot of the carries go away. I'm hoping personally, as a Joe Mixon truther myself, that Joe Mixon sees an uptick in targets and hopefully receptions even with AJ Green being out. But we'll have to wait and see. This is going to be an interesting matchup, and I think we temper our expectations in Joe Mixon. I think in my personal rankings, I haven't done them yet. I think I'll probably have him as maybe a low-end running back 1, maybe high-end running back 2 at most, but I don't think I can go any higher than that.
If it works out and he is a sit and he turns out to have a bad week, I'm totally coming back here and gloating next week. Somebody said I was drinking Hennessy.
I did see that.
I got water.
I will say I would not be surprised if he turns out with a bad performance. But again, I'm a bigger Joe Mixon fan than most. Wrote very detailed articles about him this offseason. The breakout was coming. I truly believed in him. He was my 1.01 in the draft last year. So I kind of drive that Joe Mixon train. Antonio Callaway is back there with me. Ty Montgomery was at one point, but I pushed him off. He's gone. So I don't truth or Ty Montgomery anymore.
Yeah, it's probably a good time to hop off that bandwagon.
Oh, it's okay. So jumping into my next sit here, went with Kerryon Johnson. Going to go with another rookie. Going to go Sony Michel this week. Coming back from the injury, I don't know if I'm going to trust that matchup this week, him coming back. Tennessee is actually really good against the run, which, again, might surprise you. Another team that hasn't done a whole lot to make you go, oh, they're playing really good football. But, I mean, they even eliminated Zeke Elliott for the most part this past week. Elliott did not have a good week 9 with that performance, and that was a game that a lot of people thought Ezekiel Elliott was going to blow up in, including myself. I had him as my running back 2 last week. That obviously did not turn out to be accurate in any way, shape, or form. So if they can stop Ezekiel Elliott, I don't think they have any issues stopping a Sony Michel that just came back from injury. And then also, too, do we need to be worried about Cordarrelle Patterson? I mean, he just picked up running back eligibility in some leagues. So if you play like in an ESPN league, you can start him at running back or wide receiver now. He had 12 touches against Green Bay last week. So maybe they continue to roll with him a little bit. And Sony Michel, they just try to keep him healthy for right now for the playoff run.
Yeah, I don't see them going out there and overusing Sony Michel here this week. There's really no reason to. James White's been way overly productive. You mentioned Cordarrelle Patterson. This guy is going to be the future probably of this backfield. They're on the bye week in week 11. Why go out there and run him into the ground? Take it easy. Give him a handful of carries, somewhere between, 7 to 10 touches. And then next week on the bye week, let's make sure he's fully healthy. And then starting week 12, totally unleash the beast that is Sony Michel and have him help you, carry you to the playoffs, fantasy playoffs, whatever it is. But this week, you're right. I'm not going to risk it with him as much as I like Sony Michel in this offense, especially the way he was producing here before his injury. But to me, it's just not worth the risk here in week 10.
So D-Rev Lee says Elliott didn't do good because Dak couldn't throw the ball downfield. Sony will be okay. Against opposing running backs this year, the Tennessee Titans defense is only allowing 13.33 points to opposing fantasy running backs. So you're not only asking Sony Michel to come in and carry a workload after being out now with an injury, but you're asking him to carry it against a really good run defense. So I'm not saying that Dak Prescott can throw it down the field to the best of them or anything like that, but I don't think he played really that bad on Monday night. And I think this was more attributed to how well the Tennessee Titans play defense.
Yeah, I mean that's a defense that has been very underrated here, for a few weeks. They're solid. It wasn't just one good game against the Cowboys.
Absolutely. Keep those questions coming. We got a couple of more sits we got to get through, and then we'll hit a couple of your questions real quick. Kyle Flowers, I see you out there. I see your question. We'll make sure we get to it. Hold on for us. Going to do my next sit now. Since you did a couple in a row, I'll do a couple in a row, and I'll finish off with mine, which is an entire team, which I like to do from time to time. Sitting the Eagles running backs this week. Dallas has given up the eighth least fantasy points to opposing running backs this year, and that backfield just has no clarity right now. Absolutely none. Josh Adams, we saw a couple of weeks ago, really actually performed very well. So you got Josh Adams, you got Wendell Smallwood, you got Corey Clement. Corey Clement has not played well this year. A guy that I was high on coming into the season if Jay Ajayi went down. That hasn't worked out the way that I had hoped. But they have three running backs that they're essentially using right now, and none of them are good enough to just step up and take over a lead back role. So I think you continue to see a lot of mix of them. So until we see possibly another injury or until we see someone actually firmly hit the bench, if Corey Clement continues to perform like this and they go with like Wendell Smallwood, Josh Adams, and Wendell Smallwood is really kind of your PPR receiving back, I think until we see something like that, we cannot start them, especially when they're going to be playing a defense that's pretty good against the run.
Yeah, absolutely. Until that clarity, happens. Right now, the only one that I really have any interest in is more of a flyer, a late season flyer, and it's maybe Josh Adams. But I mean, right now, Wendell Smallwood seems to have the most upside. He's the most involved in the passing game. So if you're in a PPR league, he's the better option. Corey Clement has absolutely disappeared. But you're right. I mean, until there's some type of clarity, all they're doing is these three guys are eating into one person's possible production and making almost all of them non-fantasy relevant.
Ooh, Sad J Color wants to know how Josh Adams is ranking on the dynamic running back rating. So I'm going to look that up while, Jake, you give us your last start.
All right, well, it's only fair because you set a whole team. So now I'm going to sit a whole team with my last one. And it's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars running backs. You got Leonard Fournette possibly coming back this week. You have Carlos Hyde still there. You have TJ Yeldon, who's been productive while Leonard Fournette's been out. What's going to happen this week? It's really a crapshoot. How many carries are they going to give Fournette? It seemed like he was a full go in practice today. It seems like he is going to come back, which is great news for everybody who's held on to him majority of the year. But this first week back, do I expect Leonard Fournette to go out there and get 25 touches a week like we were seeing at times last year? I don't see that. I mean, TJ Yeldon has been productive. Carlos Hyde is still a decent running back in the NFL. I can see a lot more of a committee this week than I think a lot of us really want to see in Jacksonville. Now, over the next couple weeks, do I think Leonard Fournette can distance himself and go back to that lead role, getting close to 20-plus touches a week? Yes, I do, as long as he's got no injury setbacks. But as for this week only, week 10, I'm not touching any of these three because I don't know what kind of role they're all going to play coming out of the bye week. Who are they really going to get involved? Is Carlos Hyde even going to be used? Was he just signed for insurance in case Leonard Fournette couldn't come back? Maybe they cut Carlos Hyde. Who knows? We have no idea what's going to happen, but as of right now, the way things stand, there's no way to tell who's going to get how many touches in this offense, and until we can tell, I'm just not going to risk it, and I'm going to bench him.
100% agree. As soon as the Carlos Hyde trade came through, I said, this is the backfield that I'm staying away from the rest of the year. Leonard Fournette owners, I am sorry, but I don't think you're getting that value. Even if you looked at just a per game basis the rest of the season, I don't think you're getting running back one work the rest of the season. I don't think it's going to happen. TJ Yeldon has still been pretty effective in the passing game, so that's going to continue to go his way, I believe. And Carlos Hyde, they have a good running back there, so they might as well spell him and keep Leonard Fournette healthy for a potential playoff push.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to go out there and overdo him here in his first week back.
Absolutely. So real quick, back to Jay Cutler's question about Josh Adams. So Josh Adams came in as the running back 32 in week 8 for my dynamic running back score rating, So the work there in the run game, so he had the rushing yards, but that was really it in terms of volume. He didn't do much in the receiving game at all, which really hurt him. But his other measurables, his his yards after contact, his tackles avoided per attempt, and his receiving yards after the catch, he did well in all of those. He scored 100 actually in tackles avoided per attempt. He scored 84 in yards after contact, and he scored 79 in receiving yards after the catch. So those three scores right there tell me that if he gets a decent enough volume, that we might be looking at a running back too, but he's got to get the volume. And I don't think the volume is going to be there, and that's my concern with them. So the score is telling us there's potential, but it's just not there until we see some of that volume. So that's something that we continue to monitor here over the next couple of weeks. Jake, what time are we at?
We're well over the 30-minute mark, but that's okay. We need more likes, and maybe we'll answer a couple questions. Right now, we're sitting at 47 likes in the last 36 minutes. That's not very good efficient. That would not rank good on your dynamic running back rating. Yeah, that would not be good in your rating here. I mean, 47 likes in 36 minutes is just not going to cut it. So, I mean,
hit some of those likes. Hit that like button first real quick. Just tap it, just super quick.
If you tap through it, we'll rapid fire through some of your questions, try to get as many as we can in the next, what do you say, Kyle, 3.5 minutes? We'll rapid fire as long as I can refresh this and see close to 100 likes.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to let you handle the questions since you're the chat expert.
What is that supposed to mean?
You're the rapid fire guru. What are you talking about?
Okay, well, I mean, we got to see some more likes from the people. I'd love to answer some questions here, but, I mean, 47 ain't going to cut it.
It's 65 now.
Okay, well, keep it going. I said we got to get to 100, and then we'll rapid fire some people.
You're gonna hold the people watching hostage.
I got nothing better to do, Kyle. I'm sitting here with you. We have another show to record after this is over. I mean, hey, we might as well just pull an all-nighter.
Hey, we're at 73 now, so it's going up there.
Okay, well, it's inching. So that's a good thing.
80. Let's do it. Let's answer some questions. Let's give these people what they want. # give the people what they want.
That's right. All right. Well, I'm going to rapid fire. We're not going to go into too much analysis since we don't have a whole lot of time, but I'll rapid fire some questions. We'll give you our quick answers, then we'll move on. Sound good?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
What should somebody do? What should Nehemiah do with Kenyon Drake?
Yeah, you got to hold him. He's been playing well enough. I know last week was a down week, but the 2 weeks before that, he played well. Got to hold him. Got to start him.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Don't give up on him yet. I didn't like him preseason. I don't like how much Frank Gore got last week. But going forward, he's somebody at this point, you really can't do anything with him anyway. You don't want to cut him. Not too many people want to trade for him, so hold on to him. Matt Ryan for Joe Mixon. Is that a good trade? Abso-freaking-lutely. I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't have any... I'm not really attached to any quarterback, to be completely honest. There's so many options out there. If you can get a top running back for a quarterback, I'm doing it every day of the week.
Absolutely. Accept it quick.
Unless it's Nathan Peterman.
Asking this question a lot. I just saw it pop up. Got to pick 3. Chubb, Duke, Coleman, Fournette. I really don't want to start 2 running backs from the same team, but I don't want to start Fournette. So I might go Chubb, Duke, and Coleman, especially if it's PPR. If it's standard... Oh, man, that's a tough call. Really tough call.
It's not. Stick with Chubb, Duke, and Coleman. It's your best chance. I mean, Fournette, we don't even know what he could come out there and get you 8 carries this week. To me, it's not worth it. I'd rather start the 2 in the same, even though I never do that. What about Latavius Murray? Now that Dalvin Cook is back, is he somebody we still need to hang on to?
Nope, value's gone. If you're a Dalvin Cook owner, you hold on to Latavius Murray, but I expect Dalvin Cook. I think he's 100%, so I'm not worried about him right now. Obviously, if he injures himself again, you need to have Latavius Murray ready to fire up. If you don't own Dalvin Cook, though, go to the Dalvin Cook owner and see if you can trade Latavius Murray and get a small piece back.
Yes. What about, let's do a quick take on what we think what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell, he's going to cause headaches.
Even
like
if
he has all season.
I don't care when he comes back, whatever week it is. I don't see him being overly productive, if at all. I can see him maybe come back, be in uniform, but even hardly be used. I mean, there's no reason. James Conner's the running back in Pittsburgh now going forward. Mm-hmm. Is Hines a start?
No,
not anymore.
No.
Should you trade Patrick Mahomes for Odell Beckham if you already have Carson Wentz?
If it's a 1 QB league, yeah, you might as well. And redraft. If it's dynasty, I'm not trading Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key. Is if this is a keeper league, dynasty league, whatever it is, I'm hanging on to Mahomes. Otherwise, then yes, absolutely. Should we trade old man Adrian Peterson?
No, hold on to him. He's played well enough this year. He's defied us already that they can still keep going with that. Chris Thompson, he's hurt. I know last week we're coming off a bad week, but a couple weeks ago against the Giants, he tore it up. So nope, got to hold on to AP for right now. He's still at least a high running back too for moving forward.
Aaron Hinkle wants to know if Chubb is almost an every week start now.
He's close. He's very close.
Yeah, there's not too many running backs that get 20 plus touches a week. If you have one, more than likely you're starting him.
Joe Camel wants to know # Duke over Chubb.
Nothing goes over Chubb, Joe. Chubb rules all.
All right, two more questions. Two more running back questions since this is a running back show.
Let's see here. I'll let you answer this one because he didn't like my take on one of my players. October Scorpio wants to know if you can give him 2 sleeper defenses this week.
I haven't done my rankings for this week yet. You're going to tune into the live show.
Yes, tune into the live show because to be completely honest, I got a sheet right here.
Or hit me up on Twitter, one of the two, but I don't have my rankings done for this week yet.
Yeah, do that. Hit him up on Twitter. He likes it when you do that.
Aaron Jones or Mark Ingram from Bristly Pierre. Last question of the night, PPR League. Give me all of that Aaron Jones.
That sounded kinky. I agree with you, but it sounds dirty to even agree with you. I don't know if I would have worded it that way, but yes, Aaron Jones, one of my must starts of the week. Definitely going to be my pick here for this question.
All right. Hit the like button if you haven't done it. At 89 likes right now. Let's get that thing over 100. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Another live stream here talking running backs. The video will drop as a recorded video, though. So if you had questions we didn't get to, wait for that video to drop. Put your questions on there. Either Jake or myself or one of our expert RotoBaller writers will get over and answer it for you right away. Make sure you scroll down below and you follow Jake and myself on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to Jake's other YouTube channel, The Fantasy Headliners. Do that. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We appreciate it. We're going to go record some wide receiver videos now. So we're going to do that. Keep an eye out for both videos. And if we don't see you now, we'll see you on Sunday for RotoBaller Game Day.
Have a good one. We'll talk to you later.